All right. Good afternoon. Um, Today we'll be talking about a ferry flight scenario from Lynchburg to Greensboro and then from Greensboro back to Lynchburg. So our mission overview here, we've been asked to ferry a PA-28 aircraft back to base after a maintenance overhaul. Like I said, the route is from Lynchburg to Greensboro and back to Lynchburg. The PA-28 is currently in Greensboro and will need to be returned from there. So we need to have a fellow pilot fly us from Lynchburg to Greensboro, and then we will be piloting the aircraft that had maintenance done from Greensboro back to Lynchburg. We'll be departing Lynchburg around 9 a.m. It's about an hour flight. We should arrive in Greensboro about 10. And then by the time we handle the business, what business we need to get done down there and take off back to Lynchburg, it'll probably be a couple hours. So we'd probably be early afternoon back to Lynchburg, but we need to return before nightfall. The reason we've been assigned this is because Bob, the AMP mechanic who normally does the ferry flight, is unavailable due to sickness. Little background. The pilot, us in this scenario, is a commercial pilot with an instrument rating. They currently work as a dispatcher for the flight school. They're working on their CFI currently, and they have about 20 hours of experience in the Piper aircraft. We have an opportunity to impress our flight school management and demonstrate professionalism here. The aircraft, like I said, it's a Piper. It's a PA-28. It just had its engine overhauled, a new interior, and then it's got a new avionics suite installed. Some things we want to consider here is post-maintenance test flight. Nowhere in the scenario does it say that's been done. So we'd probably want to do that, maybe do some laps in the pattern, stay close to the runway before we actually depart on this longer flight. And then the other thing is it's got a brand new avionics suite. So how familiar are we with those avionics? Maybe it's something we've never flown with before, and maybe we need a little introduction before we go flying around in those. The weather looks great all day, to be quite honest with you. It's pretty much calm winds or light winds, both in Greensboro and Lynchburg, clear skies. And then even in the TAF, it doesn't show the weather degrading at all. So pretty favorable VFR flying conditions. Our route of flight. So I chose this route just to stay kind of closer to some airports here. I chose to fly at 7,500 feet as well, just to give us a little gliding distance here. We just had an engine overhaul, something could happen. I want to give myself the opportunity to make a runway. I mean, we could even go higher than that, to be quite honest with you, if you wanted to. But at a 9-to-1 glide ratio at 7,500 feet, with most of the terrain being around 2,000 feet, it gives us about an 8 nautical mile gliding range. So this first runway, or this first airport here, we could potentially make if we lost engine pretty quick after takeoff. With a 12-to-1 glide ratio, we get a little over 11 nautical miles. So it would be a stretch to get out here. I believe that's Danville. It would be a little bit of a stretch, but it's possible. Maybe if we had some sputtering or something, or we noticed something going wrong early on before losing an engine, we could potentially start creeping towards the airport and still make it. Um, but it's just giving us the option, I guess, is what I'm getting at there. So the route of flight, like I said, just kind of squeezing between as many airports as I could. So running through our PAVE checklist here for risk management. Our pilot, so we are currently qualified for the flight. We do have the pressure to impress the flight school. I mean, we want to get a CFI job there. So I'd make sure to be aware of that and make sure it's not forcing us to make any dumb decisions that we. Oops, sorry, I lost my PowerPoint here. Make sure we're not making any dumb decisions or being pressured into something that we shouldn't do. One thing I noticed was we have 20 hours in the Piper, but my question is how recently, the recency of those 20 hours. I can speak to this because I started training in a Piper On my private, my first 20 hours were in a Piper, and then COVID happened and I didn't fly for several months. Then I went to a flight school and I switched over to a Cessna, and then I didn't fly a Piper for a very long time. And then maybe 3 years after that, I flew a Piper for the first time in a while, and it felt very foreign to me. So I would want to know how recent this guy's experiences in the Piper. Maybe he would want to reconsider, or maybe they can do a FAM flight. Maybe there's another Piper at the Lynchburg airport before this flight where you can kind of just get back in the rhythm of things. And then how familiar is he with the avionics that were installed on the aircraft? If he's never seen them before, again, that might be a pause. If it's something he's very familiar with, then no worries. The aircraft, so recently overhauled engine. Like I mentioned before, maybe it's worth doing a short little test flight, do some laps in the pattern, really check things out. Same thing on your pre-flight. Do a thorough pre-flight. Take a look around, make sure everything looks right. When you're doing your run-up, really inspect all your systems and everything down there. I mean, really just do your due diligence on the aircraft. Also, make sure all the maintenance logbooks have been filled out properly before taking off. It's a lot easier to get them fixed while you're there in Greensboro than it is to accidentally fly home without them. Environment, we have pretty good weather all day, so that's really no factor. And then external pressures, which I touched on a little bit with the pilot section there, but you do have the desire to be hired as a CFI there, so make sure that's not forcing you to make any decisions you normally wouldn't make, and then maintain safety standards despite the pressure. Again, do a thorough, detailed pre-flight. Make sure you're familiar with the avionics. Um, yeah, if on your route, if there's any discrepancies found while you're flying, start trucking towards one of those airports. There's a reason we picked a route with as many airports as possible. It's better to be safe than sorry. So, I mean, I'd rather have an engine failure over an airport than, 15 miles away from one. Prioritize safety over your schedule, or trying to impress the flight school. So, I mean, if it takes you a while and you're not going to be able to get back in before nightfall, like we're supposed to in the scenario, communicate that with the flight school. Maybe it's worth staying and flying back in the morning or something like that. Um, so, in summary, overall, I think this is a relatively safe flight. Really, the main concerns I have are um, the pressure to impress this flight school. Um, Only having 20 hours in the aircraft on it in the scheme of things is really not a lot of time, especially if it was a long time ago. If he's flown 20 hours in the past month, being a commercial pilot with instrument rating, I'm sure he'd be perfectly fine to fly it. But if it was 5 years ago, then maybe not. And then avionics familiarization. So just making sure he's familiar with the avionics. But overall, I think it's a relatively safe flight. Thanks.